I'm Emma Reid. I run Emporium Productions. I've made a lot of telly. I was a commissioning editor for 3 channels. I ran Factual at ITN, been a filmmaker. And at the heart of every single thing that I've ever made has been great ideas, great development. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It's arguably the most important part of television production. Everything starts with ideas, and without it, we have nothing. So, sounds cheery, but to tell us all about how to turn those ideas, because ideas, lots of people have ideas, how do you turn them into brilliant television? How do you sell them? How do you pitch them? How do you make sure that it'll end up on telly? And to unpick the magic of that process, we have 2 brilliant practitioners, Dorsa Nam and Dan Omnes. Dorsa, you've worked for several well-known independents, and you're currently at Multistory Media, part of ITV Studios. Dorsa's CV includes the brilliant Anton Deck's Saturday Night Takeaway. She developed Bridge of Lies for BBC, and she brought Big Zoo and his Big Eats to Dave. She says quizzes and games and Factent is her home. Dan, currently at Blast, began your career as a runner fetching lunch for Richard Osman, which is a brilliant claim to fame, and I would keep that on your CV forever. You're at Blast, you've worked on commissions for Netflix, Disney, Channel 4, ITV, and, being a factual person myself, you're all about access, you're all about great ideas, and you've managed to talk your way in, which I think is quite apposite at the moment, to Donald Trump, a fertility fraudster, and a narcoleptic murderer. Are they the same person?
Yeah.
So we'll be taking questions, as I said, so let's get on with it. So what brought both of you, start with an easy one, into development in the first place? Dan?
I was always really drawn to the development desk when I was working as a researcher on productions. There was a really dynamic energy. And then the more I learned about the process of development, it really felt like a good match for my skill set. So writing, creatively brainstorming. And so, yeah, the kind of hunt and thrill for a story, the thrill of hunting for a story at the beginning is a really exciting part of development, which I was really drawn to. And then also the pitching part of the process just really appealed to me. It kind of felt like the real life apprentice. You kind of go in and, pitching TV.
Talking of Donald Trump, yeah.
Yeah.
Dorsa, tell us about your journey into development.
Well, I started in development. I did one runner job on a show. I can't remember what it was. I think it was a scripted show. And I just found it quite boring because I'm so creative. I wanted to get in there and be like, what if we did this instead? What if we changed this? But, once the show is being filmed, you can't touch it. That's it. It's done. What's on the paper is going up. And so I remember my drama teacher once telling me before I applied to go to university, you think your ideas are better than everyone else's, so you shouldn't go into acting, you should go behind the scenes. And she was right, I do think my ideas are pretty good. So I found out about development just through scrolling through the internet, and I just applied for every job there was. And I was like, this sounds amazing, and it sounded quite, easy to me, because I come up with things all the time in my head. Whether they're good or not, that's a different question, but I was just into the creativity.
Good. Well, let's start with one of your successes. We've got a clip now of Big Zoo's Big Eats.
I'm Big Zoo, and me and my boys are cooking the top comedians in the game dinner after their shows. Why? Because man's got mad kitchen skills.
You ready? You could deep fry the dead gerbil in whatever you put in that batter.
They're better than bananas.
Bro, I get hungry after a show, so...
I got you, man.
Don't rely on the portions, bro.
Hey, come on, cuz I'm fat.
I'm just saying.
That's awesome.
It's on pickle juice.
Food brothers.
For life.
It reveals itself layer by layer, like an old striptease.
We just had a whole conversation without talking.
I believe comedians across the world deserve
somebody like me, a grime MC, to cook them dinner after their show.
When you say it like that, it really makes sense.
Big Zoo's Big Eats starts Friday 15th of May on Dave.
Excellent. Tell us about the origins of that, because this is quite inspiring for everybody here.
Well, I mean, I'm a London girl. I like grime music. I've always listened to grime music. So I've always kind of known who Big Zoo was. But there was a researcher on our team. Well, he was on another team. It was a very complicated development team story, which I won't get into. But there's a researcher called Ro. Shout out to Ro. He came in and was like, I think Big Zoo's great. I think he's funny and he likes cooking and I think he should be on TV. And he was a researcher, so that was quite a low. I was only an AP. I was quite junior as well. It didn't seem like anyone was sort of listening. No one really cared that much. Everyone cares about like the kind of big names, and I just championed it. I said that's a great idea. Let's put a meeting in with him. Let's have a brainstorm. Let's think about ideas. And we brought Big Zoo into the building. We had a brainstorm with him, me and Ro. Which is wild to think about now, just an AP and a researcher in a room of talent having a conversation about what kind of TV shows you can do. But it was also like quite great to just have that freedom and creativity to come up with ideas. And I cut the tape to sell Big Zoo as talent. So I got loads of like clips of him on YouTube and stuff like that, and I put it together, which they then took to Natalie Rose, who was at UK TV at the time as a commissioner, and she fell in love with him. She was like, yeah, this is great, he's great, he should be on TV. And the idea developed from there.
And that really goes to the heart of how, an idea is just an idea until people get behind it and work out the mechanics of how that can be turned into television. But I think it's really inspiring that it doesn't matter what level you're at in the process, a good idea is that. And sometimes you do have to fight really hard to get your idea heard, and somebody will point out to you that it's either been done before or it's a bit rubbish. And sometimes you have to take that on the chin. But if you believe in something wholeheartely and you want to be part of that process of turning, let's invite a comedian to have a DJ to talk with comedians and have dinner. Hang on a minute, how does that work?
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
And it's the tone of it, isn't it? And the best way to kind of sell talent, like Big Zoo, is to actually show the commissioner and your bosses. Your job in development is to convince everyone. You are constantly selling. It's half creativity, half salesman, and you have to convince people. So you have to get creative with the way you're going to do it. And our medium is TV, so the best way to sell someone is through actually visually showing what they're going to get.
Exactly. Let's go on to our next clip now to introduce you, Dan, which is My Big Gay Wedding. Please.
William Shakespeare, Anne Hathaway, Charles Dickens, Catherine Hogarth, Ken Barlow, Deirdre Langton. Since records began, millions of people have got married in the UK, but all of those marriages were between a man and a woman.
I now declare that you're husband and wife.
Until this date. And here they are, John Coffey and Bernardo Marti, one of the first gay couples to get married in Britain on the 29th of March, 2014. When I was growing up, the idea that gay people could be accepted by society, never mind get married, was as mad as a sack of chihuahuas. But finally, gay marriage was legal in England and Wales. But the right to same-sex marriage wasn't won without a fight.
Homosexuals in this country today break the law.
Marriage is the union between a man and a woman. Has been historically, remains so.
After a struggle that lasted decades and a sea change in attitudes towards gay people, same-sex love was finally equal in the eyes of the law.
It's official. In the last few seconds, it's become legal for gay couples to get married in England and Wales for the first time.
I am now very happy to announce that you are now legally husband and wife.
Just after midnight, they were pronounced husband and husband, although the squeals of delight drowned out the words.
This year, It's the 10th anniversary of the Equal Marriage Act in England and Wales. Now, every year, nearly 7,000 same-sex couples get married, and that's certainly something to celebrate. So, to mark the occasion, I've elbowed my way into proceedings for two dashing grooms. As the wedding planner nobody asked for. I think we'll be lucky at this rate to get the Macarena out of them. I'll also be meeting the activists and public figures who played a part in making gay marriage a reality.
We wanted to shift the narrative away from sex and focus on love.
It was incredibly moving. I remember getting in the car and that sort of spine-tingling feeling.
It was one of those glorious moments where love triumphs.
So, as I try not to ruin this special day...
Maybe.
I don't know if you've noticed, but we haven't got Bridgerton's budget. I'll be getting my full fairy godmother on. What are you doing skulking there in the dahlias? Helping them sort the venue, picking a frock or two, and pulling in favours from my showbiz friends.
Oh.
This isn't Elton John at all, is it?
Hello, everybody. You look incredible.
Please welcome Adam and Dan. All to throw a fabulous bash befitting such a momentous milestone. Welcome to my big gay wedding.
Fantastic. Tell us, how did that idea come about? And how did you persuade people that it, deserved to be on telly?
Right, so development teams often will draw up anniversary lists to kind of hook an idea around. So we, in 2022, our development team realised that there was an upcoming 10-year anniversary for same-sex marriage. So we realised that that was a great opportunity to try and get something away. So, we identified BBC Specialist Factual as the right department to work with to try and work something up. They had an appetite for it. And then we kind of developed 3 different versions. The first version was just a straight access piece to a celebrity, someone's upcoming wedding. We actually got access to Craig Revel Horwood's wedding. He was willing to let the cameras in, the Strictly judge. That was one version. Another version was going to be a really big kind of mass celebratory event. There was going to be like 100 weddings over the globe, over the UK, I should say. And then, because we wanted the editorial to be really celebratory and audacious and big. And then the third version was the one that we went for. We felt like there was kind of an organic journey of learning woven throughout. So the presenter was going to meet the activists who changed the law and kind of brought light into the dark. And then, it felt like an entertaining vehicle as well to be able to, with a real emotional heart. So we worked up the treatment in different versions, and we got the green light.
So there's something at the heart of that which is really important when you're developing is who you're pitching to. So how did you alight on Specialist Factual at BBC, who don't immediately sound like the natural home for something like this, orcas and big gay wedding? It's like, how does that work?
Totally. So Specialist Factual is a broad church, and it's actually a really great department to try and get ideas through. And it's often overlooked because it specialises in history, science, religion and ethics. And so this is a story of ethics. It's a story of history. It's a history piece as well. So we recognised that there was potential to frame it in a way which ticked their needs.
So these are 2 big success stories, really great programming, and luckily the broadcasters said yes. But what's it like when your ideas? Let's get the bad bits out of the way first. What's it like when people say no?
Happens all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
You get more no's than you get yeses. So I think you have to be a sort of person with really good self-esteem and resilience. Like, I take rejection so well now. I hear no's all the time. That I'm like, sure, here's another one. Here's another idea. You can't let it, affect you too long. I can go home and be sad in the evening, have a little glass of wine and watch some TV, maybe shed a tear, and then I'll be fine next day, because you have to keep going. You have to keep going, and you do this job because you love the process of coming up with ideas. You have to love the process, because if you love the commission that comes at the end, you will just end up being quite sad all the time. You have to love the pitching process and going into a room and be like, we're going to show you, and not take personally what comes after that.
And a no can be a not right now as well. It can be a timing thing. So ideas can be recycled over and over. And I mean, you're getting rejection from the channels, you're getting rejection from talent, you're getting rejection from contributors. The worst no is when you're kind of like 6 months down the line and someone said yes and then they pull out. That's really heartbreaking if you're really committed to the project. So, but just staying optimistic and just believing that, it will pay off in the end.
Good ideas never die.
Yeah, exactly. There's always a time and a place for an idea. So, remember to look back through your older ideas and think, how can I freshen those up? And maybe that's a really pertinent thing at the moment because, let's usher the elephant out of the door quickly by dealing with it. There's not a lot of commissioning going on at the moment because there's no money in broadcasting right now and hasn't been for at least 18 months. Not just here, Europe, America, it's all the same. Hopefully that will change soon. That's what we're all hoping for. But it's not quite as easy as it was before. So there aren't that many subjects in the world, especially in factual, to keep talking about. So how do you keep it fresh? How do you think, let's look at it from a different perspective?
Trying to find cultural moments. I think going in on really forensic moments rather than if you're taking a subject. I don't know. If you say you were approaching Prince as a really interesting subject. That's we're trying to go on a single narrative which is more focused can really help, and just a new angle which is really revelatory can just really bring an idea to life. And then obviously access. If you can get exclusive access to someone who's never spoken to before, that can really help bolster a pitch. As well as, unseen materials or unheard tapes or something which kind of brings a story to life and sheds new light on a subject, which has never been used in a documentary before. It's just really, can really unlock an idea.
So let's just dwell on access for a minute, because obviously if you've got access, you've got something unique. But say if it was access to the police, lots of people have had that before. How do you turn it into a new approach? And what are commissioners, do you think, at the moment after when it comes to that? Because, they've been sitting there, they get hundreds of pictures every week and you've got to excite them.
Really? Yeah, I mean, the channels at the moment aren't really after observational documentaries with institutions at the moment. So, but police telly is always going to be evergreen. So I think finding a format or a way to engineer stories which is unique and different and hasn't been seen before is the best way to try and innovate a way in to police.
I think also on top of that, just with the commissioning and, they're hearing ideas every single day and some of them are similar, right? So how does your idea stand out? And I mean, I'm making this up on the spot, but who, what, where, when, right? So who, is there a piece of talent that you attach to it to make it feel exciting and new and different, right? Where is the place that you're, I'm thinking a little bit more factual and empty. What is the vision of it? What does it look like? How does it look different to anything else that's been done before in that kind of genre? And who you're pitching it to. Sometimes it's okay, maybe this is a specialist factual kind of show, but what if we take it to entertainment or factual entertainment? Would this be something different for them? Or even the other way around. We have quite a reality game kind of mechanic, but if we take it to a kind of factual commissioner, would that feel a little bit more exciting to them and a little bit different to them if it still has a factual point at the top of it?
Yes, it's all about getting your client hooked in.
Yeah.
And, they are just our customers. So we have to find ways to excite them. Yes, it's another blue car, but it's got bells. Maybe whistles as well. But, I think that we all know that there's a sort of slightly jaded feeling out there. Do you think, though, on a positive note, that our world has got bigger in terms of who we can pitch to?
Yeah, completely. Streamers have really changed, the amounts of people that we can pitch to now. Before, it used to be BBC, Channel 4, ITV, Channel 5, and now it's huge. You can go and pitch straight to American commissioners if I think it's broadened the amount of channels you can pitch to now or broadcasters you can pitch to now, and it broadened your ideas as well. And you can think a little bit bigger, I think, as well. I think that helps with that kind of creativity because, you know, we know that linear channels only have so much money that they can spend on shows. So if you're forced to think bigger, it makes it exciting when thinking of new ideas.
Yeah, definitely. And you can, the aperture for the audience is bigger. Like, you can go global with your stories as opposed to terrestrial channels, which can be quite limited. You just need a British story and because it's serving a British audience. So it's a new landscape, and it can be more ambitious in terms of tacking on talent and celebrities who previously have been a bit shy from doing documentaries, and now there's a whole new landscape. So I think it's exciting.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about celebrities, because it's very much the in thing at the moment, isn't it? What do you need with your police camera action? You need a celebrity on camera. So, you know, how does that work? Talk us through the process, because, you know, if you say to somebody, "Oh, who's the host? Are you getting that beforehand? Are you getting that afterwards?" It's like with your big gay wedding. Did you have your host beforehand or after? You talked about the process, and obviously Big Zoo was Big Zoo, but you know, how does it work when you're trying to assign talent to an existing idea?
I think we draw up wish lists of talent, so who we think would work with the idea, and if they have personal skin in the game, then that will always help bring an idea to life. I think if it's authentically driving the idea in the show, if the talent actually has skin in the game, then it's always going to make for better telly. So there's also, you know, for the big gay wedding, actually, that we actually had another presenter attached, and they after the green light they pulled out. So yeah, it was a bit of the idea was going to implode, but luckily we were able to build it back up with Tom, who did a fantastic job. So yeah, you know, and access pieces to celebrities at the moment are really, yeah, they're the hot new thing. And I think it's a good and a bad thing. You know, there's no objectivity a lot of the time if it's just like a hagiography of like a puff piece of someone just showing a side of themselves that they want. But audiences also really like that. I think getting an insight into people's celebrities' private life it feels privileged. And so, yeah, that can be good as well.
Does anybody have some questions at this point? Because we're getting into the here and now. There's somebody right at the back. Wait for the microphone to come. Oh, there's another person here too.
Hey, I guess this is for Dorsa. I'm kind of curious how you and Ro found Big Zoo. Like, what was your process in finding them? And also maybe you could just elaborate on how you find other talent. Like, what's your process?
Scrolling the internet, I think, at that point. I knew of him already because I was a grime music fan, so I'd listened to his music. But him as a personality, I think he was on YouTube, on some sort of YouTube channel, and he would make food for other grime MCs or whatever, or other celebrities, right? And it was just online, and you'd watch it, and he narrates his cooking exactly the same way as he does on Big Eats. That's his tone, that's his style, and that was one thing that Natalie Rose, the commissioner, really liked about him, that he had this narration style that she wanted to put into the show when it was developing. And so it's just going through online and just watching things and just being like, they're good, that's funny, or there's something about them, or what if they did this? That's kind of how I spotted who he was, and how I've spotted anyone really that I've, you know, met, and just send a message and be like, would you like to have a meeting? And it just starts from there. But yeah, I guess it's the same way any idea comes through. It's from going online, reading newspapers, reading all types of content, and absorbing that information so that you can say, oh, I found someone, I've got someone, what do you think of them?
It is quite hard to get new names away.
Especially now.
But then if you're finding somebody online and they've got 500,000 followers, that's quite a good start, you know, because mainstream media has to remember that most of us don't actually only watch that, and that there's this whole other universe out there. So it's a great place to look for people, but you have to remember, you know, if 2 people have seen them and they're great, that's going to be quite hard to get them away. But if you're saying to a commissioning editor, I know you've never heard of him, I'd never heard of them, but look at this amazing person, lots of people love them, then they think, oh, great, they're going to bring 200,000-300,000 people to the show immediately. So that's always definitely a plus, I would say. There was another question there, a guy, grey jumper.
So how do you know, like, when research is enough, basically, like, or, yeah, like when you've done enough research to actually nail down the person?
The person or the idea? What bit do you mean?
I mean, let's say both.
If it's talent-driven vehicle, I think, yeah, if it fits, yeah, I don't know, when is it enough? When there's enough colour and detail and you feel like you've got a full picture for what, if it speaks to their passions and interests and also what the show is going to be following.
Perhaps it's worth talking through the process that, you know, you might find somebody, but then you've got to work out what's the show, what's the framework, what's the structure they're sitting in. Because when you watch a programme on telly, it has a beginning, middle and end, and it has a process, a format running through it. Even a factual programme has that, you know, you have a structure. And we spend a lot of time thinking about that. So perhaps you want to talk to that a bit, Dorsa.
That's lots of brainstorming. That's you get into a room with your development team and execs and stuff, and you talk about, so what is it going to look like? And you throw ideas out. And that room where you're brainstorming, that is your safe room, right? That has to be a safe room where you can say anything you want. And I'm not saying it in a way of like, you're going to say something that's offensive. I'm saying like, I can say a shit idea and no one's going to judge me for it, right? It has to be a non-judgment room where you can say, and then what if they do this? And then what if at the end of the episode, they go back and meet the person at the beginning? And then what does that? So you just throw ideas out until you've like nailed a format down of, first they meet this person, then they go and do this, and they buy the ingredients and they go cook for them. And if it feels like that is something that feels fun to watch, interesting to watch, and you're learning something, if that feels like it's good, then you're like, okay, let's write it out and let's write a deck and then send it off to the commissioner, I guess.
It can be really tricky though, because if you're building like a documentary around a piece of talent, then and you haven't had meetings with them so that you know what their daily life is, what their upcoming stories are, what they're actually doing with their life, then you're kind of just blue sky thinking and grabbing information from the internet and being like, okay, maybe they could do that, or what will we be following? So it's a tricky dance. Yeah.
Dependent on idea, isn't it?
Depends, yeah.
Dependent on idea and what it is.
And it's really hard to get that person to engage. The more famous, the harder it is, because they have a lot to pick from.
Yeah.
So, right, okay, who's next? Man waving, and man behind him in the brown jumper, and then this woman here.
Yeah. Hello. My question is around compromise, and where does compromise and how does compromise happen? And then is there a danger too much compromise loses the essence of your idea? And then is there a case that you walk away?
Is this compromise with channel?
Your idea. So you have a good idea.
Right.
You're committed to that idea.
Yes.
And then they want, actually, I want to compromise here with this. And it's like, it takes away the essence of what your idea was.
Yeah. It's a tough one, that one. Okay, I guess I'll go. Okay, yes, it's tricky, compromise. If it takes away the essence of the idea, then your job again is to try and convince whether it's your bosses or the talent or the channel exec that actually you're going to lose this really important thing about it. And if we lose that, what are we focusing on? Or, do you know what I mean? It's a conversation. These are all relationships at the end of the day. And I think that's what's really important about being in development. It's not just creativity and sales. It's also like communication skills. You need to learn how to talk to people and be like, well, okay, but if we lose this, what are we adding in again? And sometimes it's like, if it's really important and I really believe in it, and I think without this part of it, there's no show, I'm going to try and work a way around it so that they come to that decision themselves. It's kind of manipulative, but it's sort of just like, but sometimes you compromise and a better idea comes out of it as well. And you're like, actually, that was good, and I'm glad I didn't, walk away from that conversation, and that was a really good idea that came out of it, and actually it's made the idea better. So I think it's different ideas, different conversations.
No, totally agree. You've got to be flexible enough to work. Sometimes an exec will come and review your idea and totally kind of just restructure it. And sometimes you can really disagree, but sometimes it can really improve the idea. You can't be too precious. You can't be too attached. You've got to see it as a conversation.
Yeah.
There are two big answers, aren't there? It depends. And it's a collaboration.
Yeah.
And, television isn't like an authored feature film or, that's not what it is. It's a huge collaborative process with lots of people with lots of in points as well. And I love going and talking to commissioning editors because you've been beavering away on this idea and you're only seeing it through your prism after a while. And so they come and they say something, you go, oh, bloody hell, right, yes.
Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, why didn't I think of that? And unless it's sort of something that is entirely dependent on one thing, in which case, if other people don't like it, you're stuffed. So, obviously there are ideas like that, but it will have its time. But most ideas, we work together and collaboratively, which is what's so brilliant about development, because anyone's idea matters if it makes sense and it makes a better end product. Now, there was another question here.
Hi, my name is Bobby. I'm from UE and I do a filmmaking course. I was wondering, how big do you both feel the potential for YouTubers or influencers as talent for TV is? Because obviously you spoke about big zoos, big eats, and I was wondering what's the formula for making it work and convincing people to take a chance on the talent? Because I spoke to Ted Sarandos at Netflix recently and I asked him a similar question and said he said it's sometimes difficult to bring those audiences to your platform.
That is true. Oh God, it's really hard. Also, sometimes you're like, if you're huge on YouTube, right, and you get millions of views and you're getting paid for that, you're getting paid for whatever content you're doing on YouTube, you're also like, why would I do TV? And that's what's really hard to convince people on YouTube to do TV. They're like, but I'm doing what I want to do on my own medium and things like that. And it's hard. And sometimes it's easier with streamers like Netflix, because that is a global reach. I was like, you might have an audience on YouTube and it's hitting Britain, but do you want to be global? Do you want a global reach? I guess I really struggle. I'm still trying to figure out that. It's hard, and it's an ongoing process where I'm like, how do I convince people to do this?
Yeah, and I mean, influencers are in control of their editorial. They have a very niche thing that a lot of the time that they're speaking to, and they're delivering to their own style. Whereas television, especially factual television, we want more of a story.
Yeah.
Like, what's the story that we'd be following if it's an influencer? If just behind the scenes watching an influencer, it's kind of, unless there's something really interesting happening in their lives, then there's no point in following or working with them.
Just because they're big on YouTube or whatever doesn't mean that they're going to be big on telly. It's a very different medium. And also, if you've been used to sitting in your bedroom and talking to 1 million people every week and getting loads of money, are you really going to want somebody telling you what to say and what to do and controlling it and getting less money?
Right.
Yeah.
Probably not.
No.
Okay, where are the microphones? Can we give one to this woman who on the second row, who's been waiting very patiently with the long hair, and then we will move through to some other clips, and then we'll come back to some more questions.
Thank you. I wanted to ask if you have any specific techniques to come up with new ideas individually and with the team, and if you use specific methods for that.
Do you want to start?
Wait, sorry, I didn't understand the question.
New ideas.
Reiterate.
Specific techniques to come up with ideas individually as a team when you stuck and cannot get any new ideas, if you use some specific methods.
Games.
Yeah, games.
Love a game. Do you want me to go? Okay. Lots of different ways of doing it. Sometimes I read a lot. Whether it's magazines, newspapers, the internet, Twitter, or books, I just read a lot. And sometimes ideas come from that. And I talk a lot, if you can't tell. And so I talk to people, and then the human stories comes from people. I was like, oh, you went through that, that's really exciting, that's interesting, or there's something about that. And I build ideas on all my friends' lives. Sometimes we play games so someone will come up with loads of different
I don't know, sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's words, sometimes it's idioms, sometimes it's titles, sometimes it's music titles and stuff like that. Sometimes coming out with a title is the hardest part. So sometimes if you just start with a title and you're like, what could that idea be, is a little bit easier. You play a game and it's just like, you pick up two and then try and come up with an idea and you pitch it back. And sometimes it's not what you pitch, that it's like the first thing you say is not the idea, right? But it will spark something into the room where everyone will be like, oh, but actually that bit that you said was really interesting, and then you flow from that.
And that's really important. You don't have to be perfect. Nothing has to be perfect. You can start with a rubbish thought, but it just suddenly gets somebody else to think in a different way, and then the conversation veers off in a different direction.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, being tapped into the zeitgeist as well, just like anything around, adverts, museums, like visual stuff, you can be really inspiring. And new upcoming books or things that have upcoming films, just thinking, identifying what's interesting about stuff that you like, and then being like, okay, how could I turn that, how could I retrofit that into the telly idea, basically.
Yeah, and like upcoming trailers as well, because like also you're sort of thinking into the future, because you're thinking of ideas now, because it takes so long to develop and get an idea commissioned, that you're kind of thinking about what's going to be interesting next year. Like, forget this year, what's interesting next year, what people are going to be want to talk about. So you need to kind of be plugged in to like think about what will people be interested about talking about next year, or thinking about wanting to watch.
So this is a great way to segue into the next clip, Bridge of Lies, because sometimes commissioners very kindly, channels, put tenders out for pitches. And there's nothing like a deadline for a tender to boil the brain. Mm-hmm. And this came about from a BBC daytime quiz tender. So let's have a watch of Bridge of Lies with Ross Camp.
This is Celebrity Bridge of Lies, where winning is as easy as getting from A to B. All you have to do, step on the truths. Oh, come on! Yo! That is the truth. And avoid the lies.
No!
Oh! Oh, it's a lie.
Oh my gosh, that was actually terrifying.
Are you ready?
We are.
We are. Ready. Right. All that stands between you and a cash prize for your charities are 5 crossings. You'll each have to take on the bridge, banking as much money as you possibly can. Beat the bridge, and you'll earn a place in our vault. And anyone in there at the end will get to join forces to take on the final crossing. OK, bridge, can you please reveal the opening category?
Music.
I sing. Oh, Jade, yeah, it's yours. And I did music GCSE.
Oh, there you go. Come on, Jade.
That's a qualification. I got an A-star for that, guys.
There you go. Jade, come and join me on the bridge. The category is music. Bridge, what are we looking for on this crossing?
No girls allowed.
We are looking for music acts who have had UK chart hits where the missing word is either boy or brother. Lies have girl or sister in their name. Jade, your 5 minutes starts now. Pet shop something, weather something.
Well, this is Weather Girls, that's Pet Shop Boys, so boys are the truth in this game, so here we go.
Truth or lie? That is a truth. That opens up. Scouting for something, beastie something.
Scouting for girls, Beastie Boys.
Truth or lie? That is a truth. That opens up. Righteous something, Shakespeare something, Wenger something.
Righteous Brothers, Shakespeare Sisters.
Truth or lie? That is a truth. That opens up. Jonas something, something sledge, chemical something.
Chemical Brothers, Sister Sledge, Jonas Brothers, so I'll go here because it's forward.
Truth or lie? That is a truth. That opens up. Doobie something, ordinary something. And the hotline, step on it and you'll have 10 seconds to talk to your teammates in the waiting room.
Let's do it.
OK, that opens up. Pointer something, something beyond, London something. Your hotline is open now.
Brother Beyond.
Brother Beyond, Jade. And London Boys We Think, but it's Brother Beyond.
And we think Doobie Brothers possibly as well.
And
So
Pointer
Doobie's
Sisters.
one, Brother Beyond. Anyone else?
Right. Where are you going, Jade?
I thought we were going to watch a whole episode there.
Yeah, almost. But that, you know, what's brilliant about that, you can see why it won, is because every single person in the room, I bet, was thinking the answers through. And that's a really key thing with quizzes. But tell us how, you know, it's not very usual. How did you come up with that?
Well, so yeah, the tender came across and they wanted a new daytime quiz show. So we get into a room and everyone will have a top line thought of something. So we had a producer in our team, Ben, who had this idea of this bridge and kind of drew it out. And it's essentially true or false questions, basically. It's list questions, it's true or false, but it's a different way of doing it. So it's not just standing behind a podium and saying the answer. You're doing something a little bit more physical, which is exciting, I guess, because it's not on TV. So that was the top line thought. So quizzes are hard and quizzes are complicated, right? So the best way to develop one is to just play it. So we would literally do what they're called run-throughs in the quiz community, is we'd literally play the game. So we'd get people to come and play it. That bridge we created on PowerPoint. So PowerPoint is a huge skill set, especially if you want to come up with quizzes. And I guess when we write our decks and stuff, different companies use different things, but PowerPoint we use it so much. And we created this bridge on PowerPoint and we just made people play games. And that's the best way to test it. And then we were like, it's a little bit slow. How can we add something else? So it was like, you add these points at the side where they can go and take a breather and we reveal a lie. And these are all format points to make the gameplay more exciting. So gameplay, we just do run-throughs. We just play it tons of times. And that one we all did, it was during like a sort of lockdown, one of the weird lockdowns we had where you were semi-allowed out, but not really. And we did it all on Zoom. So I casted it all on Zoom and got a family to play it. And we had like a 15-hour edit day to like meet the deadline day to submit it to the BBC. It was absolutely shattering. But we edited it pretty much exactly how the episode runs now. The paper edit of Bridge of Lies was already done before it even got commissioned, so it was a very easy job for whoever was in the edit for it. So it's pretty much identical. There's maybe like 3 different things that we changed before it went to series, but that was a very exciting time for us.
Very good. And how did you choose Ross Kemp?
Ross Kemp, so this is...
Weird choice.
Very strange choice. And this is the thing about, talent and how they come about. And, we'll have our ideas of, our potential host list and we'll make a little page and put their faces on it. And the BBC actually came up with Ross Kemp. And I guess because he's a BBC name, he is a legend on BBC for being on EastEnders. And this was a little bit of a different thing for him. He's done soaps, he's done really hard-hitting documentaries. It's time to do a quiz. Which everyone seems to be doing now. A lot of celebrities are starting to do quizzes now, and I'm glad, because it is cool.
It is. Gameplay is really important, but it doesn't always have to be in person, as you've proved. Yes, very good. So let's before we go to some more questions, let's now do a factual one, that both of which you can then think of all your questions to ask about these two in a minute. So this is a clip from The Man with 1,000 Kids, which was a 3 times 1 hour series. Yeah. About a sperm donor who turned out to have fathered a huge number of kids, maybe 1,000, who knows. And it was a big success on Netflix. So let's watch the clip and then we can talk about, what made it a particularly Netflix streamer idea rather than a UK idea. Off we go. Let's have a watch.
We're starting to do the math on that, and we had realised that there probably are thousands of children. What happens psychologically to these children that have 700, 800, 900 brothers and sisters. How are they psychologically going to be able to deal with this information?
Start living your own life and your own dreams and follow your own will to power, your own strength. Discover your own strength. And it can be in any way. You can excel in whatever you want to do. You don't need anyone telling you what to do.
I talk with a lot of moms, new moms. And the most important question they have is, how many kids does he have? And then I always have to say, I don't know. That's the only thing I don't know. In that conversation, they realize that the whole thing, his whole story is one big lie. And then I have the feeling I'm the messenger of the bad news every time, all over again, ruining their world. It's not easy. It's making me sleep bad. I mean, yeah. I didn't want to do this. It's terrible to ruin their lives every time. Because I know they don't sleep, and I don't sleep. And sometimes I have like 10 moms on the phone in a week. And it's breaking my heart.
I think once we had all those facts, yeah, we just sat on the lounge together and we drew all our blinds because it was just, the day was just...
too much.
It was too much.
It was too much.
It was actually too much.
I don't think we left the house for 4 days
No,
either.
we didn't. We just had an 8-month-old to look after. We cancelled everything. We didn't speak to our family. We didn't work. We didn't do anything. Absolutely cried our eyes out.
And you hear the worries of all those moms for the future, for their kids. They trusted this man.
This person is half our son, and what else was there about Jonathan that we didn't know?
Wow. Excellent. I want to go and watch it.
Yeah.
It's a really good trail. So how did that come about, that idea? Because, this is the thing about curiosity in factual television, is finding these great ideas.
Yeah, I was looking into the fertility industry because I was just interested in how modern families have started. And then I got chatting to a campaigner who kind of campaigned against fertility fraud. And she was already working on another documentary about her own personal story, but she tips me off to this group of mums who were being defrauded by the serial sperm donor. They were in Holland, so I set up a Zoom in the depth of the lockdown and built that relationship. And the more they told me that story, the more I was just totally blown away by the scale of it. And so we started to develop that relationship, and we couldn't find a channel. We couldn't find a home for it for a long time because it was a global story. It didn't have a British or an American angle. We got some seed funding from a different channel, actually, from Lifetime, and we ended up developing a different idea about serial sperm donors for them. But then, it had all the elements for a Netflix story because it's a global story. It has a YouTuber at the heart of it. There was a big kind of trend for fraud stories at the time, Inventing Anna, those sort of stuff, programs. It felt right for Netflix. And there's amazing archive. There's a group of aggrieved mums who they're uniting to take him down as well, which kind of felt a bit Don't Fuck With Cats, if you've seen that documentary hit as well. So. It just felt right. It had all the ingredients for Netflix. So
and you followed those breadcrumbs from the initial idea, which is really important, isn't it? To do your research, back to the previous question.
Yeah, and it was unfolding as well. It was still, from finding the story to getting it commissioned was an 18-month process. So it was, they were seeking legal action as well. So the story was still unfolding. More mums were being discovered all the time. More kids were being discovered all the time. It was fun it was not fun is not the right word. It was interesting to kind of watch the investigation unfold.
And did you pitch that to Netflix UK or Netflix in?
Yeah, Netflix UK. So my my previous manager got a job as a commissioner at Netflix. So we pitched it.
Yeah. Very good. But, you know, notice 18 months from the beginning of that idea to actually being greenlit. You have to be quite tenacious. All these different skill sets that a developer has, endless curiosity, endless patience.
And as you mentioned as well, that it got picked up by the New York Times kind of 6 months in, and it was a leading story, a cover page story. So it was there was huge interest, but we'd managed to build that relationship, and we had them on exclusive agreements as well. So they trusted us and they wanted to work with us, even though we didn't have a channel at that point. So yeah.
And that's important with access, especially with individuals. It's about making sure that you're the only one they're talking to. Otherwise, what are you selling? You have no idea, you know. So you do have to have exclusive access with them. But it's about building trust with them and being collaborative to the point here. You know, it's very hard to make a documentary about someone. You have to make it with them. Otherwise, it's going to end in tears. And, you know, Ofcom nowadays really doesn't like people making documentaries about people because it's their lives. So it's worth thinking quite hard about how you approach people and how you build that relationship. Mm-hmm. While we're talking about this, I mean, that's a very unique story. And Bridge of Lies was, you know, obviously everyone wants a quiz now, so that's quite good. But what do you think are the trends? First of all, let's talk about factual, because obviously that is where most companies' work in the past has been factual. There's been a huge throughput of ideas, and it's slowed down a lot, but it means that we all have to be quite thoughtful about where we're going. What do you think channels are looking for at the moment?
So the streamers, there's kind of three buckets. There's contemporary history projects, there's celebrity-driven projects, and then there's pop culture ideas, really, kind of, yeah. Observational documentaries are less in trend, less in favour at the moment. So, yeah, it's those are the three things, the buckets that they're looking for. But then, you know, television is such a huge landscape, factual television. So there's lots of US cable channels as well to follow. So, yeah, the terrestrial channels are always going to be after British stories. There's the retrospective documentaries are really in at the moment. So someone sitting down, telling their story, using archive to complement it, sometimes with drama recon as well. So yeah, that's kind of.
And I think it's important with like the retrospective versus observational, that if you're pitching to a streamer, that's going to be on there forever. And they're much less, you know, if you go to the BBC and you want to make an observational documentary, or Channel 4 and you've got great content, you will probably get it away eventually, because they're domestic channels, they're willing to take risks, but big streamers are not. They don't take risks. Everything has to be past tense. They cannot do present tense because they don't know where it's going. Maybe that's an American thing. What do you think?
Yeah, they don't want to take a risk. They want the beginning, middle, and end. They want it all scripted. It's got to be kind of packaged, ready for the story to be told. Whereas observational has that kind of risk factor baked in. Yeah, and I think that's what Channel 4 at the moment are kind of strategizing to kind of get those observational projects away as a point of difference. And because it's thrilling watching something unfold live, right? So that's great telly as well. And trends kind of come and go in television. That's just the landscape at the moment.
And with observational, it's not like you don't have any idea about what's going to happen. But yes, right, we've got time for a few questions, because we're on countdown. We've got a couple in the front, and we've got a woman in white t-shirt, white cardi. Right, go for it.
Hiya. I was wondering that in your experience, when you're pitching, do you tend to find that commissioners want short and snappy hooks, or do they tend to want longer, like 20-page treatments?
Dorsa.
God, it's different with different ideas and different people. I think an initial pitch is always got to be top line right at the top. So the top line is the idea in a line, a sentence basically. So keep it as simple as possible, and everything else is detail, right? So you start with your top line, you have a punchy sort of starting, so you know exactly what it is, so they know what they're going for, and then you talk them through the idea. But it depends on the idea, it depends on the commissioner. A lot of times we have a sizzle, which will explain the idea, like a trailer for a show that still hasn't come out, basically. And we'll edit it together with some cards that will explain the idea and talk them through it. But sometimes decks can be 8 pages, sometimes we've done like 50-page decks. Like, it really depends on the idea and the commissioner and who's involved.
Dan?
Yeah, it's keeping the top line as impactful as possible, and then if it's a really narrative-driven project, then you have to break down the story, the style, the approach, the tone, the shape, why now. So there's lots to consider when putting the proposal together, but then ultimately we're working in a landscape where you've got to try and get someone's attention just from a tile, from a picture, from a title, from like a strapline. So you've got to try and make it grabby as well.
You have, and if your idea can't be told in the listings in a newspaper or online or whatever, then you haven't worked on it enough. That's what I would say, because no one's going to read it. I used to read hundreds every week when I was commissioning, and it's hard work. You have to select somehow. So something really carefully worked out is the key. Last question.
Hi, it's lovely meeting you guys. I'm really curious about, obviously you mentioned about Don't Fuck With Cats and the serial sperm donor, which are quite typically niche ideas. I'm curious, when pitching your idea, what points do you cover to give your client a sense of security in terms of the profit? How do you sell a perceived risky idea?
It's interesting because those are both fraud stories. Well, the Don't Fuck With Cats is a kind of mystery, true crime, investigative thing, and they are niche, but they're also appealing to really human, universal themes. So about being wronged, or it's always going to be. They realise that it's going to be profitable. It's in their interest. I think both of those ideas are speaking to a trend, and so when we're pitching them, the channel realised that if there's a jaw-dropping, extraordinary story to be told, then that's gold dust. So for them to be able to tell something which is going to get people speaking, that's what they want. So that's going to make them profit, ultimately.
And it all comes back to curiosity, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
the audience is as curious as we are for new stories.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Dorsa and Dan. Absolutely fantastic insights.